I wanna hear your voice. You should say all of the things you wanna say. You can be her right here today. I wanna hear your voice. Be free and tell your story.
Goddess, you made it. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Goddesshood. We're not just a show, we're a collective. We believe that the healing of one contributes to the healing of all. On our show, you will hear stories and tips that will inspire you to live, love, laugh, and exist on freaking purpose. Let's live. I'm Thea, a podcast mentor dedicated to empowering women. At Goddesshood, we focus on helping women find and use their authentic voices through podcasting, fostering a deep connection with themselves and with other women. So today, I'm honored to introduce to you Rebecca Arnold. She is a holistic leadership coach and the founder of Root Coaching and Consulting, LLC. Her firm specializes in guiding ambitious professionals towards holistic success. Rebecca has worked with over 100 leaders across various fields such as medicine, law, academia, education, and social impact organizations. With a background as an attorney, she has collaborated with renowned organizations like Google, Harvard, top 100 law firms, and K-12 school districts. Known for her straight-talking, big-hearted approach, Rebecca's new book, The Rooted Renegade: Transform Within, Disrupt the Status Quo, and Unleash Your Legacy, provides a clear path to success for professionals at any stage of their career. The book offers over 50 actionable tools to help readers rewire their relationship with stress, overwhelm, and self-created expectations, enabling them to lead and contribute at their highest level sustainably. Outside of her professional life, Rebecca is a devoted dog mom, a mother to teenagers, and a spirited wife. In her spare time, she enjoys practicing yoga, meditating, using Reiki, walking by the ocean, cooking without recipes. Oh, I love that. Sitting in coffee shops and laughing wholeheartedly. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, I'm happy to have you. So we'll start off with some fun, get to know Rebecca stuff, y'all. We're going to ask her
Nice.
some fun rapid fire questions. And for those of you who are listening in, if you would like a chance to win Rebecca's book, Rooted Renegade, you can fill out our form answering the same fun questions that we're going to ask Rebecca today. So make sure you do that. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, first thing that comes to your mind, don't overthink this, okay?
Okay.
All right. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
I love this question. And okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a strange answer. My husband and I, we occasionally play the lottery and we talk about kind of what are the first steps we would do immediately. So we kind of game it out. And one of his splurges is he would love to have a fruit picker, like somebody who picks the perfect peach for him and brings it to him. Someone who picks out the juiciest plum that exists. It's so random. So my husband has been such an incredible partner to me. Our relationship is not perfect, but I am so grateful to him. I think I would choose my superpower as an amazing fruit picker, finding the perfect fruits. And I know how much that would delight him.
That is so sweet. I love that. That's so sweet. Wow. Okay. Can you share some of the fruit picking superpowers with the rest of us?
Totally.
Thank
Yes,
you.
absolutely. Anytime.
What is one childish thing you still do to this day?
I hula hoop.
Okay.
I love hula hooping.
Yes. That is such good exercise too.
It's
so
really
fun.
good exercise. Yes. I can't get as many rotations as I used to be able to as a kid, but there's something just gleefully delightful about hula hooping. So I love doing that.
That's so true. Yeah. We used to do all the fun tricks around the ankle, around the leg.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think you might need to buy yourself one if you don't have one already.
I know. I was like, maybe I get a hula hoop. Oh, another way to totally make myself look super goofy. I'm always doing
All the
goofy
way.
stuff. Always.
Same. I also blow enormous bubbles, like bubblegum bubbles that are the size of my face practically. So my kids are a little
that's
jealous
impressive.
of that.
We need a picture next time.
I will send you a picture.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. This is a perfect transition because we're talking about burnout today. And I think all the things that we were talking about are so fun and light and remind you to kind of get back into your body. And so the question for today, for the audience, for us, for everybody, are you burnt out? So we're going to focus on burnout and how to shift that narrative towards finding internal peace and existential peace. And these are two pieces that Rebecca talks about in her book, Rooted Renegade. So we're going to touch on a little bit of that today. And we'll kind of start with your own personal story around that, Rebecca. Tell people how you
Yeah,
came
sure.
to that place.
Yeah, nobody wants to be on the burnout club, but most of us find ourselves there at some point. So I had started what I thought was my dream job. I had been looking for a long time for a job that blended my commitment to education equity and my background in law and systemic change. And I felt like I had found it and I loved it for a time. And I was balancing kind of trying to work sort of part-time, which actually did not look like part-time, and also be around for my kids and my husband and maintain my hobbies and my relationships and all of that. I mean, you all know this story pretty well, probably. And I was starting to travel more and more. I was getting more and more exposure through the organization. And I ended up having a panic attack in the middle of a presentation. I don't know that anybody attending the presentation knew what was happening, but in my chest, it was like I actually looked out the window because I thought someone was jackhammering outside, but it turned out it was internally to me. And it kicked off this terrible anxiety spiral and burnout experience where I really couldn't function very well. I had to sleep a lot. I had to see my therapist and physicians and the whole gamut. And it crushed me. I mean, it really crushed my spirit because I thought I had found this dream job and then it all kind of collapsed underneath me.
Wow.
When coming out of that experience, I had this vacuum of purpose and asked myself, well, what now am I going to do if I'd found my dream job and what's next? It kicked off a really intensive process of looking internally at both what were some of the internal factors that contributed to my burnout experience, what were some of the external ones, and then how did I want to do my life differently so that I didn't repeat that pattern.
That's so interesting. That's very I feel like I've noticed like a lot of people, will say things like when I get to this next level, when I get this next thing, then I will feel like this. And then I guess often we don't think about the like what's next or what that meaning is. So what did you do then after you kind of had that realization and then you started to pivot? What happened next?
So I started asking myself, how do I want to spend my time? What did I used to love that I'm not doing anymore? What's always been a part of me? And one of the things, do you know that old cartoon of Lucy where she sets up the box, like the therapy kind of storefront, and she's like 5 cents for advice or something like that?
I think so, yeah.
So yeah. So when I was a kid, I would listen to adult conversations. People would come to me with their problems. I would always be in it with folks about like, what's next? What's available? All of that stuff. And I had thought I would be a therapist at one point in my life. I studied psychology in college. My mom was a therapist. I worked at a psychiatric hospital in college, and I decided I was way too sensitive to be a therapist, which was a good call for me, being an empath. And when I was in this period of exploration after I healed from burnout physically and mentally, I started thinking, what's something that blends that my interest in policy and impact and all of that, and my capacity to connect with people, my deep empathy. And I came upon coaching, and it felt like homecoming in the deepest sense of the word. I mean, it was, I remember taking my first coaching class and feeling like everything opened up to me. And it felt like the pieces had started linking in a way that where everything felt in sync. And so that exploration was a really important part of the process. And it couldn't have happened until I did the deeper internal healing work.
What would you suggest for someone who says like they don't have time to figure out what their interests are the way that
So I think there are a couple pieces that are really important when looking at burnout. there are external factors that contribute to burnout, and there are internal factors that contribute to burnout. And so until you have reckoned with all of that, it's really hard to start looking at what you want because you're on this daily hamster wheel. And so starting to disentangle what are the external factors contributing to burnout? Like, am I in a toxic work environment? Is my workload excessive? Are my supervisors hypercritical and micromanaging me constantly? Are there unreasonable demands happening around me? Are my strengths not being used in my job? And I feel like I'm kind of hitting a wall all the time where I'm doing work that's really more in my weakness area. Those are all external factors of burnout. The internal ones are things like negative self-talk, imposter syndrome, people pleasing, challenges setting boundaries. You can move to a new job and that stuff will not change. And that's the internal work that I'm pointing to that has to be done before you recreate the same pattern again and again. I love the nod I'm seeing over there.
Yeah, no, because I think about that. I was reading that in the book that I'm reading today, but it talks about that, you think that once you get these things, you'll be happy, but then if you haven't done some of that work or you haven't really addressed the root cause of things, you're still going to always be feeling like you're lacking something, It's interesting.
Yeah, and many of my clients get to I work with a number of academic faculty. So they may have spent 15 years training and on this path and then realize something has to shift internally for them to stay in that game longer. So for people who don't have a lot of time to do deep exploration work, it actually is not that time consuming or complicated. It's a matter of looking at when do you find yourself in flow? What are you doing? What lights you up? When you get excited and really want to dig into something, what are those kinds of tasks in your life and what are you up to? What did you do as a kid that you loved? And where are kind of the threads of that showing up today? So in that example that I gave, as a kid, I was coaching. I didn't realize that that's what it was called, but that's what I was doing. Do you see threads of what you do now and what you did as a kid?
Yeah, I guess so. Like I definitely was that kid that was around the adults. I was mature for my age. So when my mom passed, I noticed that like it was interesting. People that used to go to her would start to like come to me. It was really interesting. And so there was this shift, but it would happen as a kid, as an adult, and then in college I was a resident assistant, so I had to listen to my residents on campus. Like I was always doing that. So yeah, I think so with like teaching people how to use their voice, that's coaching. So it's definitely shows up everywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. It's when you start to see the breadcrumbs, it's really amazing. I think how it's always been there. Most of what we are meant to do and when I say that, I mean the combination of things that light our soul ablaze, like we are delighted to do the work and our strengths and our experiences and all of that. A lot of that is really shows up in multiple kind of time periods of our lives.
That's so true. That's so true. Wow. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I mean, and even like in more recent years, I was fighting like the podcasting journey of like really going that route. And so I created so many different podcasts. And at first to other people, it looked like I was pivoting way too much. But then when I realized, I'm supposed to be teaching people how to like launch their own shows, I was like, okay.
That's why I've been experimenting with all this stuff.
Pretty much. Like, how do you get it up so fast? Like, yeah.
Yeah. I think most of us have this deeply intuitive sense that we know what we want and we know what we don't want. We just don't always listen to it.
Yeah.
And we're conditioned out of it in many circumstances. And then we find ourselves in this rat race, kind of just perpetuating the old messages and all of that stuff instead of really tuning in inside to what we most want.
Yeah. And why do you think that, most people get talked out of their intuition?
I think in Western society, we privilege the intellect. We want to see the thing. We want to know the thing. We want to have data. And I'm doing this with my hand on purpose. Those of you who are just listening, like there's a kind of a stark, directive kind of attitude. I mean, even when we look at medicine, right? Like in Western medicine, we've gone away from and are now unfortunately circling back to the old wisdom of how things have been done for centuries, herbs that worked, and understanding of energy variation and all of that stuff. So I think we don't understand how intuition works. And so we discount it instead of looking for the evidence actually of how many times we have been in sync with intuition when we look back on things. What do you think? What's your guess about that?
Well, mine is a little more conspiracy theorist, but
oh, interesting. Okay, tell me more.
well, I feel as though we're often disconnected from the things that make us powerful. And I think, to keep, if you think about the way, okay, I'm going a little deep here. Go with me on the rabbit hole, you guys. So, if you think about the way that most schools are structured, right? We're taught to like listen, sit still, raise our hand, go to bathroom at a certain time, lunch at a certain time. Like we're kind of conditioned to be in routine, and intuition and following spirit is not always in routine. Sometimes it's totally completely different from that. And I think if you can keep people disconnected from their intuition, you can keep them dependent, right? And keep them small, That's my little conspiracy theory about.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. We also forget all the time that we're animals. You think about animals use their intuition and instinct all of the time. We're the same. Yeah. We just have learned to tune out that part of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we become extremely powerful. You're totally right. When we start to tap into that deeper source of wisdom, intelligence, knowing, power, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who are struggling with your intuition and listening to it, I think one of the things that's helped me get more in tune is that intuition is very quiet and soft. And when you're not following your intuition, it's very frantic and panicked and anxious energy. And that has been like one of my biggest indicators when I'm not really tapped in or listening in. What has been something for you that's like, I know I'm following my intuition, or I know that I'm off course?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's a quieter, gentler voice. It's not the voice of anxiety or frenzy or any of that. It also requires a stillness. For me, it requires a stillness that many of us don't prioritize carving out in our lives. And I'm not talking about meditating for an hour necessarily, though that's delightful, but just simply feeling your feet on the floor, your back against the chair, taking a deep breath and asking yourself, what do I most want right now? I think for people who are socialized as women and other marginalized identities, one of the ways that power has been withheld is having people become disconnected from their true wantings and yearnings, because that's dangerous, right? And so many of my clients have a hard time connecting with the internal sense of wanting. So actually, when I'm working with clients who are having a hard time knowing what they want next, or knowing what kind of area they want to work on, or any of that, we start with what does it feel like to want something in your body? And it can be as simple as like, what do I want to eat for lunch today? Okay. What does it feel like to want? And for many people, there's like a feeling in the solar plexus or the gut somewhere that is a little fiery. How about you? Where do you experience the sense of wanting? Sorry to coach you a little here.
I feel it in my chest, like in my heart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I like think here.
To like tap into that.
Yeah. So I'll sometimes just start to like rub my chain, or like and I have a tattoo kind of above it too. So it's either the necklace or the tattoo. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So I found with clients, they either feel it in their heart space, their solar plexus, which is the area like right below where your rib cage meets, or their abdomen pelvis area. And it's when people start to notice, they're like, man, I have sensations there all the time, which I would take the pelvis one, but mine happens to be the solar plexus. You get what you get. You don't get upset. Yeah. But it's like it's a power source when you plug into that and start asking yourself as a practice, what do I want now? What do I want now? What do I want now? Instead of listening to what other people want for you.
Oh, that's so true. There's an app. Well, it's a feature, but I'm sure they also have an app. So for those who don't have iPhones, maybe look up an app that does this. But Apple introduced this feature in the health app now, where it'll ask you throughout the day, how did you feel overall for your day? And how are you feeling right now in the moment? And that has been huge, because I have to check in twice a day to like say, it notifies you at different times, not the same time every day, but just like, how are you feeling right now? And then in your health app, it charts the factors that are making you feel what you're feeling. So it's a range
Interesting.
from unpleasant all the way up to like neutral and then like highly pleasant. And then you can pick different sources of what the feelings are. And then you can pick who, like family, friends, community, travel, tasks, whatever it is, and add a little bit more context on why those things are happening. So it's very useful because it makes me
Yeah.
stop and go, how am I actually feeling today?
Yeah, many of us are so practiced in numbing out and not really asking ourselves how we feel. And then we wake up 5 years later and like, what just happened?
Yeah, right.
And why am I totally miserable and burnt out? So I love that. That's a great tool. I have to play around with that.
You know, something else too, like, you know, when people, when you hop on a call or something at work and someone asks you how you're doing and like our inclination is to say fine, we pause a lot more now and then like proceed to answer. And people are like, well, thank you. That was really thoughtful. I'm like, okay, now you because you just said fine. So, yeah, just there's little things that we can do to start noticing how we're feeling in the moment.
There's also so much research about co-regulation and mirror neurons and the effect for us of being with people who are aligned in kind of demonstrating to us how we want to feel on the inside too. So what I mean by that is I love that you are tapping in and answering that question honestly. My version of that is when I am at a cash register or something like that, and I'll ask the person there, how are you? And then I pause and wait and I look at them like I actually want to know the answer to that question, which I do. And the look on their face is so, I'm getting goosebumps right now. It's like they actually feel seen and appreciated and a human to human connection, which so many of us are craving in those micro interactions and in our deepest relationship.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, there was this church I used to attend in California when I lived in San Jose. And that was one of the first sermons the new pastor had talked about. He was like, you know, this is pre-pandemic, where he's like, you know, most adults are going home and going to work and they're by themselves. They're not getting any physical interaction. They're not getting any other human contact and they're just alone. And so he would have us like speak to the people around us and hug each other. And I was like, oh, this really means a lot, you know, and we just don't know. So wow, that's really good, Rebecca. Okay. So let's talk about these two dimensions from your book. We talked a little bit about internal peace and kind of like regulating and things like that. Let's get into more of this existential piece.
So I want to hit on one aspect of internal peace that we didn't talk about for a second, and then we'll go to existential peace because I think it's important. We are under practice at metabolizing our emotions and knowing how to regulate in ways that are actually expulsive. So what I mean by that is a lot of what's out there is like take a deep breath, settle, meditate. All those things are great. And for people who are socialized as women and other marginalized identities, we are not talked to or trained in or encouraged to yell, scream, shout, I go on rage walks where I like pump my arms and rage out in my own head and release it instead of it sitting and festering. And so having a lot of range and options to metabolize the emotions that we're encountering all the time helps our nervous system regulate in ways that are sometimes counterintuitive, right? So it's not all the time I need to take a rage walk, but I need to know that that's an option if I want it instead of just taking a deep breath and settling my body. So I do just want to say that too.
That's true because deep breaths are still going back into like, it's not fully like, yeah. Ooh, okay, you take a rage walk. So I'm trying to think, is there anything I do? I have to think about that more. Maybe I'll add it to the show.
Yeah, when you get super mad, think about what you do.
I write in my journal. That's one thing I do. You know, I think I could do better about letting it out, to be honest. Yeah. Because I get mad. I like talk myself out of why I shouldn't be mad, which is not always productive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could be mad more.
Love that for you.
Yeah.
So some of the other things I offer clients are even like jumping jacks or squats or something that allows you to get, I use expulsive activity for a reason. It's that sort of like eruption, not toward anybody, but erupting out of you. So anything that helps you do that. I chew gum aggressively, right? So there are just a lot of options. Okay, so that's kind of in the internal peace domain. In the existential peace domain, if you're constantly feeling like I'm stuck. I'm not being well used. What am I here for? What should I be up to? I feel like I'm biding my time. Any of those things are signals that there's some things going on in your existential piece kind of realm that are amiss. And so there are lots of different tools and strategies that you can do. So sometimes we feel like we get in this panic mode of I'm stuck and I'm always going to be stuck and there's nothing I can do to get unstuck. So I just want to say there are tons of options. So I'm going to list a couple of them. There are lots in the book and there are lots you can find other places. So I never want someone to feel like trapped or stuck because I have felt that way and it is a terrible, terrible feeling. So one is simply to write what you are good at. And I know this sounds simple, but sometimes when I ask people, they come up with 5 things. And I'm like, no, I'm talking 20 or 30 things that you are good at. It could be making spaghetti. It doesn't matter, right? It's like from the mundane to the huge, it's all good. Okay. And if you get stuck with that, asking your friends, family, colleagues, you can look at old work reviews, but only the positive parts of them. Anything that really helps you source. And there's some online sources too that we can include in the show notes to support you if you're looking for ways to source your strengths. We are so practiced in paying attention to what we're not good at instead of paying attention to what we are good at and doubling down on that.
Yeah.
So that's something very simple you can start doing. And if it's easier for you to just say, I'm going to write down one thing a day that I'm good at, great. So another thing you can do is start to ask questions of yourself, and journal, or even just sit quietly and ask, what did I love to do as a kid? What did I love to do as a teenager? How about in my 20s? How about in my 30s? Wherever you are, really tracing kind of the path of what you have loved to do and start to ask those questions. The third thing I'll say is that I have found visualizations to be an extremely effective tool in helping people access that intuition about what we really know that we want, but have blocked out. There's a link, I'll share a link to some visualizations for folks where you can start really listening to yourself and looking at what is going to light me up and get me purpose aligned. Those are just a couple of tools, but there are lots.
That's beautiful. So how many, I guess I'm curious percentage wise, like when you ask your clients to write down, 5 things that they're good at, how many, like on average, how many people can't write down 5 things that they're good at?
I have done, so not with my clients, but workshops. I've had people do like 3 and they need to be really nudged. But it's almost like a spigot. It's like once you kind of turn it on a little bit, and get people over that hump, because it's an under-practiced skill, they start to list more. And I'll start to ask questions like, what would your best friend say? What would a kid watching you at home say you're really good at? We can get really creative about the kinds of questions to tap into that. But a lot of folks socialize as women think like it's braggy and all of that other garbage about like paying attention to what you're good at. The other thing I've heard is people say, well, if I focus on what I'm good at, then I'm going to get lazy. And that's such conditioning of like, well, I should always be focused on improving myself in the ways that are hard for me or in my areas of weakness. Okay, sure. You can focus on that some of the time, but there's so much more bang for the buck focusing on your strengths.
That's so true. I found that I get discouraged if I stay in my weaknesses way too long. That's so true.
Yeah. I think we're so conditioned to think work should feel hard. Or we have to work hard to make money, or all this like hard work thing. When we are working in our areas of strength and genius and what lights our soul ablaze, it's easy. And that's kind of by design, I think. Yeah.
I'm here for that. Your work doesn't have to be hard.
No. I don't know where we came up with that, but I do not appreciate that narrative.
Maybe it's that like, that expression, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. And like, there's some satisfaction of some sort of, having to take the long route to do something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's this like Western individualism theme of like, yeah, you can't ask for help. You should be able to do it yourself. You should be constantly improving yourself and it should feel hard.
Well, and
that's a bummer.
Community is like, I think, huge because that's where you find people that excel Like my best friend, we're very similar, but there's some things that like we're like extremely different in, and I think that we are able to like really balance each other out.
Mhm.
We don't have to like figure out the whole answer on our own. We can like, depend on each
Yeah.
other a little bit more, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I find really interesting with the clients is when we start looking at their areas of strength and if they're feeling kind of about their job, oftentimes they are either there's values misalignment. And I experienced that in what I thought was my dream job, actually. Like I believed in the end that we were up to, but not the means. Like I was not values aligned. I didn't see that for a long time.
Yeah.
So that was causing me internal stress without realizing what was going on. The other thing I see is that oftentimes in teams, we're just not strategic enough about orienting people's job roles based on their strengths instead of it becomes a very rigid job description instead of really looking holistically at people's skills and talents and how to divvy things up in different creative ways.
That's so true. That's very true. Wow, that's juicy. Okay. And so those are the three things that people can do. What are some words of like comfort just for folks who are in these two areas right now?
Yeah. So a friend of mine likes to say big doors swing on small hinges. And the way that I think about that in the coaching and personal development realm is like very small changes in the actions you're taking, in the way you think about things, in small patterns and behaviors cause huge impact for your quality of life. And so it may feel daunting to make a shift sometimes, and I totally get that. Yeah. And there's so many areas that are available to shift just one simple thing that will make a big difference for you.
I love that. I love that. Okay. Now there's another piece in your book called relationship piece. And I don't want to go too far into it. Maybe you can explain what it is. But for those of you who are interested in learning more about that, you can actually get her book. It's called Rooted Renegade.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the whole premise of the book is that holistic success, when we really look deeply at it, it relies on three pieces. Having the sense of internal peace, like your nervous system is calm, you're feeling settled, your body feels aligned with what you're up to, your values aligned, all of that. And then existential peace, you're doing work that matters, that's aligned with your purpose, aligned with your gifts, all of that. And your habits are in line with the life you want to lead. And then the third piece is relational. The third component is relational piece. And what I mean by that is your relationship with yourself and your relationship with other people. And so oftentimes, I mean, that whole expression of wherever you go, there you are is important because we can go on vacation, we can change jobs, we can have a different partner, but we are always there. And so if our relationship with ourselves is amiss, we have to really look at that. And there are many tools to start doing that and rewiring our relationship with ourselves. And so that piece of the book goes into that. What are some strategies for that? And then also our relationships with other people. We're social creatures. And so if we're surrounding ourselves with relationships that are sucking us dry, of course it's going to lead to burnout. Of course it's going to lead to us having a poor quality of life. And so there are many things to do about that. And so the book outlines all of that.
Oh, that's so juicy. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay.
I could chat with you all day.
I could too. We might continue that actually. We're going to pivot for a second into the vibes or vibing segment. This is where we pull an affirmational card and a song from our Goddesshood playlist. So the affirmational deck that we use is Wisdom del Alma, and it's 44 affirmation cards to activate your inner diosa. Diosa in Spanish is goddess. So that's why we use this deck. So I'm going to shuffle, and then Rebecca, you're going to tell me which hand to pick from in just a second. Okay. Left or right?
Left.
Okay. You guys are all picking left.
I'm a lefty, so I'm probably biased.
Oh, okay. That's juicy. I am loved. I am worthy. I am diosa. I whisper love notes to myself. I speak affirmations over myself. I look at myself in the mirror and say, I am loved. I am worthy. I am diosa. I love that one. I have never gotten that card since I've been using it. So that's a good one. I feel like that really does relate back to our conversation, especially around the relationship piece, where you said, you know, wherever you go, there you are.
Yep.
And
hello.
But I think, you know, knowing that you are loved, you are worthy, you are, you know, goddess, you are diosa, I think should just remind you and encourage you. And that's your
Could I say a quick thing about affirmations?
Yeah, go for it.
2 quick nuggets that I love about affirmations.
Yeah.
One, and I learned the strategy from a friend. When you find an affirmation that you want to practice saying continuously, say it as many times as there are words and emphasize a different word each time you say it. So, because words have different energetic frequencies, right? And we actually can feel this in our bodies when we say different things. So, if I want to say I am loved, the first time I might say I am loved. The next time I would say I am loved. And you can hear, well, I can hear, I think probably you can hear the difference of each of those iterations, and it lands differently, and it helps our body really sink into that. So just an offering for everybody as you're practicing with these affirmations.
I love that. Yeah, I can feel that. I can hear that. Yeah. Ooh, okay. That's juicy. I love that. And then the song for this week is Kicking Back by Mila J. And this song is just about relaxing. And after a conversation about burnout, I think we can all use a kickback. I'm not sure if this is a thing everywhere else, but I'm from the West Coast, and I say that this song kind of falls into a category of like cruising music. So it's something you'd like listen to while driving along the coast, or think lazy Sunday afternoon, breeze in your face, smell of the ocean, right? Or just sitting on your patio, right? And I used to actually drive for Uber in San Francisco, which was like wow. But on the way home, I used to always be able to stop in Pacifica and drive along PCH, and so Pacific Coast Highway. And so that this song kind of has that vibe of laying back, relaxing, getting back into your body, and just relaxing, releasing.
I love that.
Yeah. So do you have any final offerings for the audience before we close out?
I would just say reach out and connect. You can find my information in the show notes. And please just remember, like, change does not have to feel overwhelming. If you are on the brink of burnout, there are things that you can do. It's not going to be like this forever. So reach out. I would love to hear from you. And there's just so much possibility available for you. So I hope you'll check out the book. I hope you love it. And for those who fill out the questions, I hope you win a signed copy of the book. I'm delighted to send it to one of you, which I send into the world if you are the winner with a lot of intention every time I mail those packages. And I'm buddies with the postal workers, so we have a good time mailing your book to you.
I love that. I received mine and it's beautiful. So thank you for tuning in. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Goddesshood with Thea and Rebecca. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and head to the show notes for some goodies. And remember to live, love, laugh, and exist on freaking purpose. Go live.
I wanna hear your voice. You should say all of the things you wanna say. You can be her right here today.